Hey guys, so for this video here, what we're going to talk about is the loss of your past self. The loss of your past self. So, this is going to tie into a lot of the material that we've been working with together. It's going to definitely complement it. I'm not going to say it's going to override it. I'm not going to say it's part of it. I think it's just going to complement it. And when I say the loss of your past self, what I'm saying is that the version of you that existed before is no longer with us. Okay? So, what I mean by that is that the version of you that used to do things that you no longer do is no longer here. The version of you that used to have unhealthy viewpoints or unhealthy patterns, whatever the case may be, that version of you is no longer with us. And it's like, okay, so you're saying I've developed, you're saying I've gotten better, which is, yes, that is what I'm saying, but it's the loss of that version of yourself that needs to be recognized. That was a person, right? That was who you were. That was a version of yourself that your family knew, your friends knew. And in a sense, that person has passed on. To just make it maybe a little clearer to understand, I'm not saying that you're actually pushing up daisies. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that the version that used to do those things is no longer with us. And because of that, you need to own and accept that, but you also need to grieve that. Because that person is now dead. The person that used to think a certain way, the person that used to act a certain way, the person that used to handle themselves a certain way, that person is gone. And you need to give that person its time and its consideration, as you would give any other person that you lost the time and consideration to reflect and mourn. Okay? I'm not suggesting you go out and actually have a funeral for yourself. I'm not proposing that one bit. But what I am saying is that because that person meant so much to so many people, and because you were that person, you need to be able to say, okay, I need to grieve this loss. I need to mourn this loss. This is a person that is no longer with us. So, what's an example of that in action? Well, so one thing you could say is, the childlike version of yourself, okay? So, the version of yourself that didn't have responsibilities, didn't have goals, didn't have ambitions. That person is laid to rest, right? Now, you can revisit those moments, and you might be able to maybe take that energy, enthusiasm, and propel it forward into your future. But the version of you that didn't have responsibilities, the version of you that didn't have goals, the version of you that just wanted to sit there and play video games and eat candy all day, that person is now gone. And I think for someone like our parents or our family of origin, that is a traumatic experience, because that child is now gone. It's like you have now become the adult you are. So the child that they were buying toys for, the child they were playing with, the child they were getting hugs and kisses from, that child is no more. So there's a loss there. And you're going to say, okay, why do we need to grieve it? Why do we need to mourn it? Well, because, that child, that older version of yourself probably was important to a lot of people. Now, I mean, with that being said, I mean, if the older version of yourself was very, very toxic, then yeah, maybe it's better to not mourn that. But I would just say that, the older version of yourself, I would say it almost demands respect and acknowledgement because, that person got you here, right? And you have now become the person that you are. So I would just recommend and I would just suggest that you need to give the proper time and consideration and reflection to the old version of yourself that is no longer here. And I think that's important because when you try to come to terms with your past, when you try to fully accept things that happen to you, good, bad, or indifferent, you've really got to come to terms with the person that went through that and how far you've grown since then. Right? So I think it's easy to simply look at what we're doing today as always, even though it's not. It's definitely a unique point in time that you have the privilege to experience and that I have the privilege to speak to you about. It was not always like this. That doesn't mean the past was better. That doesn't mean your future's worse. It's just where we are today is not where we were yesterday, especially not where we were 20 years ago. So it's worth it to at least look back and say, okay, there was a lot of things that I did in my past, in my childhood, that I no longer do today. Not saying anything's better or worse than anything else. It's just a matter of fact that I'm not that same person anymore. So we need to grieve that person. We need to accept what that person did and accept that they're not going to be doing that no more because they're no longer with us. So I would just say that, when you look back on yourself, we're not talking about a relapse, okay? We're just talking about the old person that you used to be, how far you've came. I think one tool in that endeavor could be just mourning the loss of the old version of yourself. And you might be able to look back and maybe get a couple chuckles, maybe. Or you might just say, hey, I'm happy it's not happening no more. I I don't know what the ideal is in that situation, but I think, something to strive for would be to say, okay, I've done what I did, and it's okay that I've done what I did. I'm happy I'm done what I did, and I think, today is a better day than yesterday, and tomorrow is going to be an even better day than that. So then at that point, you're owning and accepting all three versions of yourself. You're owning the past, the present, and the future. You're not making one better than the other. To be happy with the past, to say today is good, and to say tomorrow is going to be better. If you can honestly do those three things, then I promise you are very, very, very far on your growth and development. Happy for the past. Today is good, and tomorrow's going to be even better. All right, guys, I'll see you.